Alright, so this is going to be part 2 to What If Deku Had Divine Dividing. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
They took it to 10.
Let me tell you how I come through with the 1-2, kicking shit like kung fu. Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, so in the last part we just got done with the the entry exam to UA. So in this one we're actually going to do the Quirk assessment and the heroes versus villains. So our story would start off on the first day of UA with Deku walking into the classroom. He would see Bakugou with his feet on the table and Ida yelling at him because of it. Bakugou would notice Deku walking through and his face would switch from an annoyed to a very angry look, and he would walk up to Deku in a very angry manner and basically say to Deku, looks like a shitty nerd like you was able to get into UA. And Deku wouldn't really mind this too much. He would be like, well, I could say the same thing about you. And Bakugou would just be very pissed off. But before he could do anything, this is when a girl would walk up to him, and this would be Uraraka. And she would basically thank Deku for what he did during the entry exams, saving her. And Ito would also thank Deku for basically having the self-awareness to notice that there were other requirements for the test, not only destroying villains but also saving people. And people would kind of know Deku generally because he got the top score in the entry exams. So yeah, so as they're kind of talking, this is when a teacher would walk in and he would basically say, all right, enough with the chit chat. And this very sleep deprived man is actually Aizawa. And the class are like, wow, this guy looks really bad. Looks like he hasn't slept for like a week. And he basically says that, all right, we're going to skip orientation and we're going to go straight into a Quirk assessment. And the person who does the worst gets kicked out. And people are having this kind of riot, like, you can't do that. It's barely the first day. And he's like, yes, I can. The school lets me do whatever I want. So get ready or else you're going to get kicked out. So everyone would just get ready and put on their sports uniforms and go out to the field. And for the tests, I think that Deku would do pretty well. The only one where he wouldn't get first place really would be the ball throw, since he wouldn't be able to get to infinity. But he would ask Aizawa how much can I use my quirk if it affects others. And Deku or Aizawa was like I said before, you could use your quirk to 100%. And he's like, alright. So what Deku does is that he does a half dimension, right? And he starts dividing everything around him, including the people, right? And takes their power. And this is when, he throws the ball as hard as he can. And I think it would go probably a couple kilometers or a couple tens of kilometers. So yeah. So he would get second place in the ball throw and and Uraraka would obviously still get first since she got infinity. So yeah. And as they're kind of testing out their abilities, right? This is when Albion tells Deku something. He's like, Deku, or he would say Midoriya, I feel like the Red Dragon Emperor is nearby, so keep on your guard. And Deku's like, why would he be here? Is there a villain here? Because he would assume, because Albion has been telling him his whole life that one day he's gonna fight the possessor of the sacred gear, the boosted gear, right? The red dragon. And that one day they're fated to fight. So Deku basically assumes that it's going to be a villain. And one day he's going to, defeat this person. So he's like, yeah, alright, Albion, I'll keep that in mind. And he hasn't really told many people about Albion. He's told people close to him, like his mother and things like that, but not really like other people, right? So it would get later on into the day, and this is when All Might actually comes through, and he comes to the door and says, I am here as your combat instructor. And he says, today we're going to do heroes versus villains, so everyone get into their hero costumes. So for Deku's hero costume, it's kind of weird since he could kind of make his own with the balance breaker, but I think for places where he doesn't have that, I think it would be kind of like a skin tight suit that's made out of like some sort of carbon fiber kind of fabric, something similar to Aizawa's scarf, but something like that where it's not baggy, right? And that's just kind of for general protection until he could use his like balance breaker. So All Might would still pick the teams as he would in canon, using that kind of random system. And the two teams that he would have a go against would be just like in canon, where it's Deku and Uraraka versus Bakugou and Ida, with Uraraka and Deku being on the heroes, and Bakugou and Ida being on the villains team. So we would get to the point where Uraraka and Deku are outside of the building, and they kind of come up with a plan. They basically say that Deku or Midoriya will go for Bakugou first, and then they'll have Uraraka basically go upstairs to where Ida's at and kind of see what they could do there, and kind of wait until he's done fighting Bakugou. So as they walk into the doorway, they hear explosions, right? And this is when they see Bakugou, and he basically tells Uraraka to kind of book it, right, and go to the other side. And this is when Bakugou tries to block Uraraka, but instead of blocking her, this is when Deku would kind of grab him and kind of toss him to the side and use divide on him, right, to kind of half his power. And this is when Bakugou would feel a difference, right? And he'd be like, this shitty nerd just halved my power. And he would just rush Deku again. He's like, I don't care, I'll still beat you with half my power. And he would try to go for a right hook, as he usually does. And Deku knows how he fights at this point, since he's always been in fights since they were little kids. So Deku can just easily dodge it. So what Bakugou does is that he tries to change up his fighting style, just how he does in the anime, but Deku just halves his power again. So now at this point, Bakugou has lost 75% of his power. Because if you don't know how dividing works, just in general, right? If you take 100% divided by 2, it's 50. Divided again by 2, now it's 25. You lost 75%. Right? So each time you divide, the amount you lose is, not as much, but it's still proportional. So yeah, if that makes sense. So Deku would basically be able to just kind of overpower him and use the white tape to kind of just like get him out of the game, right? So he would kind of meet up with Uraraka at the top, and Uraraka wouldn't be able to get near Ida or the bomb really, because there'd be nothing around for her to use her quirk on, since Ida does the same thing as he does in the anime, where he kind of clears out that area. Not only that, but he's just picking up the bomb and kind of running with it, so she can't get near it. So Deku is a lot faster than Ida in this. We're using his wings, right, and his basic balance breaker, which he didn't really use against Bakugou. Really, he had his like kind of wings out, but that's kind of it, because he would need that to divide. So Deku would just activate his balance breaker and go kind of rush Ida, right? He'd be like vanishing dragon balance breaker, and he would turn into this kind of white mech kind of dragon. If you don't know, I think Deku and Ida would have this kind of connection because of both of their costumes are very similar. I think because they're both based off mechs. The one for Vanishing Dragon, I think it's based off a Code Geass mech, I believe, if I saw that from the wiki. And I think Ida's also based off a mech, if I remember. I'm not sure, but you guys can tell me in the comments. But anyways, yeah, what Deku would do is just kind of rush for Ida and kind of do like a punch to the gut, and this would Ida would kind of step back from this because of the pain and things like that, and the knockback obviously. And this is when the balance breaker or his Seigugiri would be like, divide, because if you don't know, when they use the balance breaker, they don't need to wait the 10 seconds to divide or boost, right? So at this point, Ida would have lost around, I believe it's 87.5% of his power. If you know it, he would divide him 4 times, not 3. So it'd be like divide. So that's 4, and that would be equal to 87. So imagine this, right? Ida was running at 100 miles, right? If you divide him 4 times using divide, he'd be basically running at 12 and a half miles per hour. So it's a big difference. So when Ida would get up, he would have some difficulty, right? And he would feel a lot slower, and I don't think at this point he'd be able to pick up the bomb. So with him being pretty much useless, he would give up, and this is when they would wrap him up with the white tape, and they would win. And All Might's just watching this, right? And he's very impressed. So they do that kind of explanation right after they do like the exam or the after battle like examination, and they basically All Might praises Deku for kind of eliminating the threat using as little violence as he could, because his power is very good at doing that, suppressing people. So yeah, he would get a lot of praise from All Might, which would get the attention of everyone else in class. And you guys, I asked you guys if you wanted a ship in this one, and a lot of people said Momo, so that's what I'm gonna go with. So yeah, this would also catch the attention of Momo, since she is a very hardworking student, and seeing how well Deku was able to do in this kind of scenario, she would find that very attractive. So for the representative, right? Aizawa would tell him that they need to choose a representative, and he doesn't care who, they just need to pick one. So everyone would be cheering because they all want to be it. But Ida would be like, no, we gotta make a system, and people need to vote for it. So that's what they do. And I think it would be Deku as the representative, and then Momo as his vice representative, just like how it is in the anime. So we would cut back, or cut later to after school, and this is when All Might kind of pulls Deku aside to the teacher's lounge, and he basically says like, Midoriya, I've decided, right? And he tells Deku about his injuries, right? And how he was attacked and how he has a sort of time limit on his abilities. He can't really, fight at his full strength. And Deku's like, oh my gosh, right? And he explains all for one. And he says, I've been using this boosted gear to kind of compensate for that. And he would show Deku his boosted gear. I've been using the power of the Red Dragon Emperor to kind of hide the fact that I've been losing my power. And I know that you're the White Dragon Emperor just by the wings and your balance breaker. And he basically tells him that I know that one day the White Dragon Emperor and the Red Dragon Emperor are destined to fight. And I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to break destiny, and I'm going to refuse fate. And the only way I could think of doing that is by giving you this boosted gear. So this is when All Might kind of takes off the gauntlet voluntarily and gives it to Deku. And Deku's like, oh my gosh, is this really possible? And Albion's like, if this is the wish of the holders, then yes, people can give away their secret gear. So Drake would kind of speak to Albion, saying like, hello, Albion, it's been a while. And then Albion would be like, yes, it is. But to team up, it's never been done before in the past. The closest that we've gotten was the Red Dragon. One of the Red Dragon holders was able to absorb one of my gems, but that's it. But to have the power of both boosted gear and divine dividing, Midoriya, you have the power of both Red Dragon and White Dragon. You will be unstoppable. The power to divide and boost one's power, you will be the greatest hero that will ever live. And the reason why All Might is giving him the boosted gear, even though I just said that he uses it to compensate for not having All for One, or losing All for One, or not All for One, One for All, is that he already chose his successor. And I'm going to say that his successor is Mirio. So yeah. And he doesn't want to fight Deku, right? Because he knows he'll lose, since he's older, and he doesn't want to like fight a kid, because these battles would be fights to the death, right? And he's not gonna take away someone's power, right? He's gonna give this since he doesn't need it no more. He already has a successor, and he still has some one for all like power within him. So Deku would have that gauntlet and the wings now. So All Might would basically tell Deku like, don't tell anyone that you got this power from me, just say that your quirk evolved. And Deku's like, alright, that's what I'll do. And he's kind of walking home, and Albion and Drake are kind of having this conversation, and they would basically be saying like, would you ever imagine the day that the White Dragon and the Red Dragon would be on the same user? And Drake would be like, it's a possibility that I've never seen or see come to fruition before. And I don't know how powerful our user would be. He could possibly be one of the most powerful users that we've ever had. but he needs to learn how to control both. And basically he would ask Albion like, how long have you been teaching him? And he'd basically say that he's been teaching him since he was a small child, right? And he would basically say, all right, now we gotta like do training for the boosted gear and learn how to kind of do that. So if you guys have like a name for this kind of combination of dragons, then you guys can tell me, because the white dragon is called the vanishing dragon, and the red dragon is called the Welsh dragon. So you guys can tell me like a combination of these two like names, and or come up with a like new name for this. And I gave him the boosted gear since a lot of people were asking for it, not only in this last video, but just in general, right? So this was like the only way I could really do it with it making somewhat sense. So yeah, with that being said, I'm almost at 900. I think I need like 60 more, something like that, 50 more, and we're almost at 1,000, less than 200 away. So I would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe and get me to 1,000, right? Because if I get 1,000, I could do community. I could open up the community tab, and then we could do polls on new videos and things like that. So if you really want more chances to vote on, what ifs, I needed to get to 1,000 so I could open up the community tab. So like I said, I very much appreciate all the support. And with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,